Hey, what's up? So like many others, I was also having an extremely rough time with life the past few years. Not just with the current health crisis, but other aspects in my life that, well, also began to fall apart. And it really put me in a long state of depression. The wound is still kind of fresh and I'd rather not go into it too much, but just know that I was at a really low point in my life. And to get my mind off of it, and since we were still stuck in quarantine, I decided to explore Crunchyroll to see what's currently ongoing. That's how I ran into this anime known as Fruits Basket. From first impressions, the anime looked gorgeous in terms of art design and animation. Plus, as I've gotten older, I've been gravitating more towards slice of life series than my typical beat 'em up shonen, so I decided to give this one a try. I knew a little bit about this series prior from a friend who explained to me the basic plot a long time ago. They were a big fan of the original series back in, I think, the early 2000s. But in hindsight, I don't think they did a good job explaining it. I remember their explanation as a main girl protagonist living with a bunch of dudes that transform into animals when they get an intimate hug. And well, from that, what I got was, so this is a reverse harem series where our main girl is
a promiscuous furry?
I mean, stranger things have come from Japan, so it didn't sound too far-fetched, but it definitely did not seem like something I'd be interested in at the time. And so naturally, I didn't have a lot of expectations of liking this series in terms of plot. Well, if it even had one. And it did, which I figured out later, but I figured I could treat it, if anything, as a comedy and just enjoy it for its animation. Now with that said, I still had some expectations of this series since it did get the Brotherhood treatment and that it got a whole new series from its original predecessor, so it must have some substance, right? And the anime definitely exceeded my expectations, and before I continue, I'll definitely give you the recommendation to give it a watch if you haven't already. It's a very wholesome series that had so many uplifting moments that definitely carried me through this rough time in my life. So with that said, I'll try to give you a really simple plot synopsis without much spoilers for those who haven't seen the series, but I'll definitely throw in some Easter eggs to those who have already seen the series. Let me know if you agree with some of my favorite moments in the comments down below. So the main story revolves around a family known as the Somas who are, quote, cursed in that when they are hugged by someone of the opposite sex or they are in a weakened health state, they transform into a respective zodiac animal and one individual into a cat. Yep, there's a 13th zodiac animal.
I didn't know there was a 13th animal in the set. Did you guys know there was a 13th animal? I cannot be the only person who did not know there was a 13th animal.
But ironically enough, the cat was more of a companion to the rat zodiac in that they were best of friends. That is until one fateful day where a race happened, and it just so happened that the cat decided to take a quick rest before doing the race. The rat was so competitive and wanted to win so bad that rather than waking up the cat for the race, he left the cat to sleep and won the race himself, and that led to the cat hating and despising the rat. Side tangent about the rat and the cat aside, on top of their curse, each of the zodiac animals have their own personal struggles and hardships they are trying to overcome as the series progresses. This leads us to our main girl protagonist, Toru Honda. She tries to find more about the curse and also help each of these characters in some way and ultimately builds a strong connection to each of them. And as the series progresses, she also has to undergo her own character development and that she has to face her own inner turmoil that she's been trying to avoid. She quickly became my favorite character in the entire series, in that she came from her own personal struggles, but she remains this plucky, optimistic character that not only tries to make the best of what she has, but also tries to help lift up other people and reassure them that everything's gonna be okay. Like, man, I wish there were more people in the real world like her. Find you a best friend like Toru. No, find you a mom like Toru. But jokes aside, this series is technically a romance series, but I like that the series focused a lot on platonic relationships and just helping build each other up. And it's just so refreshing to have a main girl character that has her own plot and drive in the series that doesn't revolve around the main guy character. Okay, now for a season by season breakdown. The first season was definitely a monster, or in this case, a Zodiac member of the week season, which geared towards really introducing you to each of the characters and each of their individual character arcs. Some of my favorite moments in the first season include episode 3 with Yuki's talk with Toru on the bridge, which was definitely further built upon later. The conclusion of episode 5 with the trio, which was such a nice uplifting episode with what was going on during that episode. Like, man, her family be garbage. I also really like episodes 17 and 22, Uo and Saki's backstory, because it really showcased how meaningful their relationship with Toru is and how she really helped them get through some of the crappiest moments of their lives. And it was really funny in terms of like a directing standpoint. It honestly felt like I was watching a different anime for those two particular episodes. It was like I was watching a Resident Evil episode for Saki's backstory, and for Uo's it was like Tokyo Revengers. And of course, I have to give a shout out to the season finale for the series. It left it with a really good, strong conclusion to the first season, and it also built up some interesting plot points for the following season. Honorable mentions to Haru pulling up on his bicycle. I would have never guessed that was how they were going to introduce him of all characters based off of his character design. Mr. Calm, Cool, and Collect rolling up on a bicycle. And I would honestly say that the first season is probably my favorite among the three, which isn't usually the case, as the first season usually tends to be the setup and introductory for not just the characters but potential arcs in the series. But I really enjoyed the season with the amount of meaningful and different stories that came about it. And then there's season 2, or what I like to call the beach season. And yes, the series continues to be wholesome. I mean, did you see Toru's swimsuit choice? Not your typical fan service beach episode. But I will say that this is the season that felt like it was dragging for me personally, especially in the middle after the beach trip. But it definitely picked up and set the stage for the finale towards the end. In particular, there was one episode that was particularly my favorite, and that was episode 21, There Was Definitely. I was actually kind of getting a bit tired of Yuki's side shenanigans with the student council. It felt too much like filler, and it wasn't really doing much to develop the plot or Yuki in general, or so I thought. But I really enjoyed watching Yuki's backstory. It might be the second saddest plot point. Well, personally, whenever I see Momiji as the center character for the episode, I'm like, well, this is going to be depressing. But I would say his character plot points are a lot more in the dramatic and over the top, things you would see more in like soap operas. While Yuki's is more subtle and grounded in his feelings of inadequacy and loneliness. And honestly, it's something I can relate to growing up, not feeling appreciated while, envying others who you desperately want to be like. And then finally finding a group of people who genuinely see and appreciate you for who you are. And that honestly gave a lot more meaning and depth for some of his side plots with the student council. And then we have season 3, the final season. First of all, can anyone explain to me why this season only has 13 freaking episodes? At first I thought there wasn't enough content, but when I was reading around in the comments and on Reddit, it seemed like there were moments in the series that were cut out from the finale. I am glad that there were at least 2 wrap-up episodes. I love post-main plot filler episodes that try to tie loose ends and just embellish the crap out of the series. But I do wish we got more in this season, which I guess in itself is a compliment to the series. Always leave them asking for more, I guess. But I will say that this did feel a bit rushed, especially towards the end. Now, I'm not saying this was a bad season, as I still thoroughly enjoyed the high pace of it, but at the same time, I feel like if you weren't the main couple, you kind of end up being an afterthought. Oh, I remembered Ritsu existed in this season, by the way. It's hard to pick episodes that I enjoyed in this season because it felt like a giant movie in that a good chunk of episodes take place right after the previous. So I guess I'm gonna cop out and say I enjoyed every episode. I will say that my favorite scene in the entire season, for this one anyway, was the kiss and 360 embrace. If you've already seen the series, you know what I'm talking about. Like I said previously, I mainly watch shonens in the past, so the romantic payoffs in those usually fall flat. So this was definitely a refreshing take, where characters don't immediately realize, yep, that's the one, but rather develop the relationship as friends, and it continues to progress as the series goes on. So upon editing this, I realized that I didn't talk at all about Akito. That character is technically the main antagonist for the series for the most part, but I don't want to go into too much detail because it kind of ruins the experience for first-time watchers. For those who have already seen the series, I will say that I wish they did a lot more character development for that person, and as much as I liked the catharsis that occurred when they interacted with Toru, it kind of felt like too much talk no jutsu for me anyway. Akito's mother, Ren, I like that it helped develop Akito's character a bit more by giving a backstory, but I felt like her introduction didn't really do much, and she kind of just disappeared after that box incident. And I guess she's just living her life now. I felt like it was missed opportunity to develop Ren's character more. All in all, as a Virgo, I guess I can forgive Akito for the things that they have done, but you know, I will never forget. Warning, major spoilers ahead, so if you haven't watched the series, this is your one and only warning before I ruin the entire plot. So, actually, I'm not exactly sure how the curse was breaking throughout the third season. Do any of you guys know? I believe at one point Shigure explained that eventually it would dissolve or break on its own. So was it all just a waiting game? Or does Akito have some conscious/subconscious control of it? That seemed to make sense as Akito was mentally falling apart in the third season, and I guess that would speed up the process, which can explain Shigure's intention of pushing everyone. But regardless, if anyone understands this better, or if the manga explains it better, since I'm anime only, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Much appreciated, guys. Personally, I like to believe that in the end, Akito was the one that consciously let them go to help further show Akito's character progression throughout this series, rather than it simply just breaking on its own. Now, I want to talk about a separate section that most people don't review, and it's the music. As a reformed band nerd, I love the atmospheric pieces that set up a tone for each scene, and they're also great background music for studying afterwards. A lot of the tracks are quite soothing and relaxing, along with some comedic bits sprinkled in if you haven't heard the soundtrack. It's hard to pick a favorite, but for me, I really enjoyed listening to the tracks entitled I Will Protect You, Repeat and Repeat, and definitely Every Night Has a Dawn. They're also somber at points, yet so uplifting as the track continues, and what can I say? I like the ones that give me the feels. Funny enough, the tracks are fairly prominent and distinct in the series, and I can actually visualize scenes that use these specific tracks. And the openings and endings are all bangers, man. My favorite opening is definitely the last one, Pleasure, and the runner-up is Prism. My favorite ending is One Step Closer, and the runner-up Eden. What about you guys? Which openings and endings are your favorite? And to conclude, I'm definitely going to miss the series. It was literally the only thing that made me look forward to Mondays. And although the show can get dark and depressing at times, it showed that even in the darkest place, there is always a glimmer of light that can guide you out of it. And all you need to do is continue to move forward rather than look back towards the past. There are going to be many challenges that you will face moving forward, but regardless of the outcome, you will be able to come out of it and grow as an individual. And as I get older, I realize that in order for growth to occur, you're going to be in many unpleasant situations that may seem insurmountable to you at the time, but as you continue to push forward, you develop the grit to overcome these obstacles you never fathomed you could. And when you look back at all these adversities you have accomplished, as well as the amazing people you are sure to meet along the way, you're going to realize how amazing the journey was and how strong you are as an individual. Well, that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching, friends. Have you already seen the series? What were some of your favorite parts of the series? For those who haven't seen it, hopefully I've convinced you to at least give it a try. And when you do finish or try this series, come back and let me know your thoughts. Ramblings aside, I'll catch you cool cats on my next one. Peace!